back. The NBA is back. The Warriors are back. Their first practice of training camp is today.
Let's go.
In about an hour. And they're 3 weeks away from the start of the season. 3 weeks from today is opening night against the Suns and Kevin Durant at Chase.
And it's only 2 games that night. They're the second game on TNT. I'll say this, Jay. You don't know this about me. This is my favorite time of year. MLB playoffs start today. We got football and NBA during the week to get us to Sunday. And then, pit stop. If you can't wait for football, you got college football and NFL Thursday and Saturday. Let's go. But the vibes, to me, were immaculate yesterday at Chase.
Yeah, I'm always interested how fans view it, because there is that, and you were talking to me about this before the show, that first day of school kind of vibe with respect to media day and everybody being around each other that covers the team, and the players are back, and they're all up at the podium addressing different things that are going on with the team. So there's that initial excitement of, it's back, it's back, it's back. But then, is it really back? Like, I think that's good for I think that's good for 2 or 3 days. And with the Warriors, there's so many storylines to get into just off of yesterday. But I think what happens is you get that initial it's back, it's back, it's back for like 3 days, and then it's like, oh, you know what? It still is a couple of weeks away till it matters. But today, I think the Warriors are first and foremost at the front of mind here in the Bay Area, and Chris Paul at the podium.
CP3.
And it's interesting because I think when you look at all of the different storylines, and the one that popped up here within the last couple of days surrounding the Warriors is the Draymond Green injury.
6 to 8 maybe, Jay.
Yeah, although Dre said yesterday he feels like he's a fast healer, and he's healing fast.
No walking boot,
no limp or anything like that. So at this point, it's still reevaluated in 2 weeks. That's the first step. We know we're 3 weeks away from the opener, as I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago. And so, we'll see. But, he may miss a couple of games. He may miss no games. He may miss maybe as many as 10 games if it's on the 6-week end of the entire 3-week preseason plus the first 3 weeks of the regular season. But it got me to thinking as everybody came in, and I kind of want to get into just I do think you said the vibes were good. I think if you're a Warrior fan, my biggest takeaway from Media Day yesterday was everything that needed to be addressed, it felt like was addressed. And it also felt like it was addressed in a manner that at least gives you hope and optimism about this season with 3 weeks to go before it actually tips off. And even the one negative, which is the Draymond Green injury that popped up, I'm here to tell you, I think that can be turned into a positive because it relates to what the number one storyline was.
And it was a real
injury, and that was
6 starters.
How does Steve Kerr handle the starting lineup with Chris Paul and Steph and Clay and Draymond and Wiggins and Looney? And you just touched on it. He had the 6 starter comment. So to me, when Dre goes down, I'm thinking, well, it's set.
A no-brainer.
It's set now. Now that's at least for the first however long Dre's out, something you don't.
The record continues for CP3. The starting record.
Yeah, the 1,200 or 14. Was it 14-12 or 12-14?
I don't know.
But it was. Yeah, it's one of those. Every game of his career, Chris Paul has started. But I feel like maybe it seems like there's still been at least
social
from the
media
fans.
Jonathan Kuminga stepping up.
Like there's still some kind of question about it. To me, it's a no-brainer. If Draymond's out and the Warriors, let's be honest, are going to have to prep this thing like Draymond is going to be out, because he's not there today and he won't be there for a couple of weeks as far as practices. So if I'm Steve Kerr, I'm mapping out CP3, Clay, Steph,
Dre,
Wiggins, and Looney.
No doubt about it.
And that's the 5. And to me, the injury means that whole issue that was going to be a big issue
alleviated.
You get to kick the can down the road and sort it all out when Draymond's healthy.
No doubt about it, Jay. And I was in here so excited to see you. I'm stepping on you early. But listen, we're not yet at the anniversary of Punchgate because the Warriors had good juju when they went overseas, and then that jumped off. So we're not exactly at the 1-year anniversary. But I took an L all last season, and I'll admit it, every turn, JD, when it came to the Warriors' road record. And nobody now can tell me, you put on your white coat, I'm in your doctor's office, Jay. Confessions, Usher, halftime at the Super Bowl. I'm confessing to you, there's no doubt about it that what went on in camp with the punch, that affected the Warriors' connectivity. And that was the word, thank you, that was the word I brought up to Dunleavy Jr., who we had the pleasure of speaking with yesterday. Like, that was a point of emphasis for this Warrior team. So this offseason wasn't just about the additions. It was about what we saw in Arkansas, where Klay Thompson was with his brother, Moody, at his event out there. Like, I think they're working on that. So to me, JD, I want to see, now that Poole's in another situation and all the good juju that I deem is about to be on display, it'll get tested. But I didn't like this cloud that is CP3 going to start or not? And you're right. To me, it's a no-brainer. He starts. But, Jay, tell me, this is why I'm at your office. Tell me if he starts because of ego, him accepting it. I don't know if him starting over Kuminga is a greater basketball reason why he starts.
Well, Kuminga hasn't earned anything at this point.
No doubt about it.
So
but if
that's
we go
kind of a separate.
No doubt. But I'm trying to put it all in one
it's not
funnel.
Like, even if it's not CP3, that doesn't necessarily mean it's Kuminga.
Right.
But how could you, if you're the Warriors, get away with, like, it's one thing if Chris Paul's being asked to come off the bench because they had the best statistically starting lineup in the NBA last year, and you've got Hall of Famers galore in that starting lineup. If you're asking CP3 to take a back seat in that because of that,
you don't like that.
That's fine. Like, to me, that's acceptable. If you're CP3, it's like, I'm not coming off the bench for Jonathan Kuminga. Yeah. I'm not coming off the bench for Moses Moody. Like, to me, it's two separate. I'm cool coming off the bench
when it's Draymond.
When it's Dre and you run into guys that have won titles and all of that with Wiggins and Looney, and it was the best lineup in the league. I'm cool with that if I'm Chris Paul. I'm not cool with it if it's like, well, we want to get Moody in there. We want to get Saric in there. It's because not just Kuminga. We want to get Kuminga in there. Any of these guys.
And I brought up Kuminga because, Jay, you're going to be like,
streets
stay
love
off
Kuminga.
Ant,
You're going to get. You brought up Kuminga because the streets love Kuminga.
Yeah, and I thought about it also, too, position-wise. Kuminga plays that position. So if it was about size and it wasn't about, records and what CP3 has meant because he's a steward of the league, I could be talked into, I'll go McDonald's. Hey, JK, you want an early nugget? Here you go. Here you go. And you wouldn't be by yourself, Jay. He ain't earned that, but you play that position. You got the size.
Backup four. He's the backup four going into camp.
So from that viewpoint, I could see, we could call it scholarship, go college, but I'm with you. It's 90 in my world. It's 99.9% CP3 now. I'll get that opportunity to start.
Yeah, and look, it's not crazy to bring up Kuminga as somebody that pencils in as the backup four and all of that. But look, Chris Paul, I thought yesterday, and this is one of the things I jotted down among the many, and we'll get into them here. Steiny and Guru on 95.7 The Game. Chris Paul hinted at the fact that he'd be cool coming off the bench. He talked about the 2008 Olympics, and while he hasn't done it in the NBA, he said, hey, that worked out. The quote was, anybody who knows me knows that I'm all about winning, whatever I can do to help our team win. And again, some of that is, I thought Chris Paul was spectacular yesterday at not having any kind of edge or attitude or any kind of hint of not being comfortable with the surroundings. Like I thought he was like, whatever, if he needed time, and we all sometimes need time to process things that are different, good, bad, or ugly in our lives. Sometimes you just need a little time to get your head right.
Who you telling?
And it feels like Chris Paul had the time over these last couple of months to where he knew yesterday it was go time. And I got to be a certain way. I got to act a certain way. I can't bring no energy that people are going to be questioning because
sour.
To me, he was almost, at least he sounded like, a little bit of a different dude in everything that he said. And look, maybe behind the scenes he's thinking, damn it, I want to start. I want to start no matter what. I sure as hell better be starting if Dre's the guy that's going to be out. But he said all the right things, and he said it with the right demeanor, which, again, is another one of those things that I file away as a positive vibe or a reason for Warrior fans to be optimistic about the fact that this thing can work. It doesn't mean it's going to. Yeah. There's a million things that could go wrong. You know, the Draymond injury, you could already say, hey, this is an older team, and already guys are starting to get hurt. Like that's definitely something that you can put on the other side of it. But so far as Chris Paul goes, I think so good, and that sets the tone for a more harmonious team compared to where things were last year.
Okay, no doubt about it, and I give CP3 an A+ for yesterday. Presentation, attitude. But, Jay, I'm going to go Dr. Phil, and then I'm also go foul pole in baseball. You tell me if I'm not being fair here. And Steiny and I touched on it yesterday while we were at Chase. I do believe that demeanor from CP3 and saying the right things was so easier now that the Draymond injury happened over the weekend. You say what to that?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, because we can never prove it.
You might be right. Like, I'll even give you that. Like, I'll even say, Goo, you're right.
I nailed it.
You're right, Goo, you hit it. So what?
Yeah.
Like, we all in our lives have to fake it sometimes. And the key to faking it, though, the key to faking it is making it out like you're not faking it.
Yeah.
And so I don't really care whether you're real or not. If you can come in and not have a fleck of attitude or anything like that, then you win the day. And I thought Chris Paul won the day because the big storyline coming into camp before the Draymond injury bumped its way to the top was going to be, what does Steve Kerr do?
No doubt about it.
And it's not a lock, I think, at this point.
Because it hadn't been decided yet.
No, but the only way Chris Paul's not starting is if Steve Kerr wants to, and to me this would be an overthink, if Steve Kerr wants to say, well, Chris, we want this to be your role when we have everybody, so we want you to get used to that role now because that's going to be the role when we have everybody. To me, that's an overthink. Right now, you put your best 5 on the floor at the beginning of the year because you've already said you need to get off to a good start, and Chris Paul's basketball IQ, especially on the offensive side, is right up there with Draymond's, even though they're different sizes and different positions. Draymond, a lot of time, is the point guard for the Warriors. So, Chris Paul can come in and run this stuff. And to me, it's more important that Chris Paul gets acclimated to the other stars and starters on this team because those are the dudes he's going to be playing with down the stretch in games to help them win. Even if Chris Paul wasn't going to start, Goo, he was probably going to finish 9 times out of 10. And so to me, all of the reps you can get him with the big guys, the star players, the brand name players, to me, that's more important than trying to fit him in the box of what his role may be if you had everybody healthy. And I'll tell you another thing as it relates to, like, well, maybe you want to get Kuminga in there and give him a shot. To me, Kuminga, it's the opposite. Kuminga needs to accept that backup 4 role and own that backup 4 role. So I would still keep him in that backup 4 role, meaning Chris needs to play with the big boys, and Kuminga needs to own that role and be cool with that role and make that role into something where he can be an ultra productive player as that backup 4.
I'm not mad at that, but I'll tell you this: when the trade was announced, stylistically and just it being a natural fit, CP3 on this team, JD, I got my popcorn because I don't think it's a natural fit. And I talked about it, and I still believe it. Draymond, you talk about it, the point guard. His thing offensively is he brings the ball up. He sets up the offense. How is he going to be able to do that with CP3, let's just say, starting alongside Dre? Like, I want to see how that plays out. Now we got to press pause on that. But, Jay, you just keep saying something to me that I keep hearing, and it's something the Warriors are going to have to deal with. If he finishes games, okay, I'll give you the offensive side of, okay, you start the game and do some of the characteristics you have, some of the traits that Draymond does, but physically he does not on the defensive side. So, Jay Digga, you are going to be small when CP3 is out there. And without Draymond, how are you going to make that up? That's what I can't wait to see. Because offensively, you can sell me, I'm bought in, but defensively, I'm like, oh boy, and you're going to get that first test when Phoenix comes in here. You know, if CP3 is finishing games, Jay, how are you going to, IQ and all, how are you going to overcome being small?
Look, I'm not saying he's going to finish every game necessarily, but I think the plan is going to be, and I'll say this, his expectation is going to be that he's finishing games. And again, maybe it's not quite 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
And look, if somebody's having a hot night or there's a matchup, then Steve Kerr's going to have to figure that part out. Maybe it's better to stay with Looney in the lineup. Maybe Kuminga is having a great game. Maybe somebody else off the bench is doing something. Mm-hmm. But to me, you don't make the deal if you're the Warriors if you're not looking at it like Chris, Steph, Clay, Dre, and Wiggins can't finish games, or Looney in Draymond's stead in this particular instance with Draymond Green out due to an injury. Now, I'll say this. There's opportunities, I think, for Kuminga maybe to finish games in Looney's spot.
Okay.
At that point, if they want to play him, real small ball 5, if he's having a good night. But again, that doesn't make you bigger.
Yeah.
That makes you smaller because he'd be basically playing the 5 at that point with the other. And how do you combat it? Steph's a better defender than Chris Paul. Steph's got to do his thing.
Yeah, it looked like he put on some muscle again.
Again. And Clay's going to have to guard up. Clay's going to have to be a 3-4 defender. Wiggins is going to have to hold his own, maybe against some more size. So, or Wiggins ends up on maybe the smaller guard against certain teams. So there's ways to do it. But to me, you don't make the move with the intention that Chris Paul isn't, when all things are going well and you're the best version of yourself, finishing the game. Like that, to me, that's the whole point of getting Chris Paul is, you want him to run the second unit and all of that, but you also think most nights he's going to be out there at the end of the game because you want that basketball IQ on the floor.
Yeah, and I agree with that, but it goes back, and we haven't talked, Jay, on air about, and I'll never question one of the GOATs, if not the best coach in the league right now, currently, Steve Kerr. He's earned that, a Don. But, I didn't, from a personal standpoint, like the 6 starters terminology. I didn't like the fact that they didn't know, and he said it to Willard and Dibbs. He alluded to the fact that, guys got to buy in. And I just thought to myself, okay, so I'm going math here. You break it down to 6 guys. And I'm just like, so all it takes to me is one guy to buck the system and not be happy with whatever the decision was. And it's not the Golden State Chris Pauls. It's the Golden State Warriors who have gotten to the mountaintop 4 times. And Jay, there's just a part of me that doesn't like playing into the new booty or the new person, which is CP3's, his brand and ego being so big that the team would do a U-turn or go left when they want to go right to feed that. And that's what I don't like.
I don't think they're feeding
that's off the table right now because Dre is not available. So all systems are go. Let's go.
I don't think they're feeding the ego though right now.
Nobody's eating now for 6 to 8 weeks.
Well, that's the thing. Like I think you're right. There was going to be a question of are they going to fit the square into the round peg to keep him happy?
Yes.
But to me, that's off the table for now. And I'll be honest, before the Draymond injury, I think it was trending toward they were going to ask him to come off the bench. I think it was trending that way. I think it all the reports and everything and all the educated speculation and all that was leaning the other way. Like they were gonna cram him in.
That's what I thought, Jay.
And deal with the I think over the last week and a half lead up to training camp, I think that was starting to shift to the point where they were going to have a conversation if they felt it was the right thing about him coming off the bench. But again, that's off the table now.
No doubt about it.
With Draymond being out. To me, he goes right into the starting lineup, and you use this as an opportunity to get him a lot of minutes with the regulars because offensively he can provide some of the things that Draymond provides in a different way because he's a true point guard and somebody that can get the ball to players in certain spaces on the floor. So you have to use that negative as a positive. To me, you keep everybody else in their roles.
Like Kuminga. You got me thinking about Kuminga. Like you need to perfect.
You're still the backup for
your reality.
Nothing changes for you other than you're going to get more minutes because Draymond ain't here. So Kuminga, even though he wouldn't be starting, would still, on paper, going into the season, have a bigger role in my book. But that doesn't mean he has to start, because to me, when everything's whole, he's not going to be starting anyway, and you're going to want Chris Paul to be having the ability to play at his best with those other star players, because that's ultimately what you're going to need at the end of games.